All right, cool. I'm being given the cue. All right, everybody. Welcome to our webinar Media Trends for 2024. I'm Mitch Hansen. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at OpenWeb, and I'm going to be the host today. Obviously, 2024, we're right at the start. It's got a lot in store for us. We got U.S. election season, Google killing cookies in Chrome, tons of AI advancements, and obviously how it's being deployed is changing all the time, looming privacy regulations, and a ton more. So to help make sense of it all, we've got three experts who know the ins and outs of the media and publishing world right here before you. These are also three among the 8 experts who joined us for our annual trends report, which we're going to be releasing next week. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a couple introductions really quick, and then we'll get on to the discussion. So first, here on your screen, you'll see Amanda Rubin. She's the Executive Vice President of Brand Solutions at Enthusiast Gaming. At Enthusiast Gaming, she orchestrates global sales, account management, programmatic, revenue operations, and marketing strategy. If you're not familiar with them, Enthusiast Gaming is North America's largest gaming media platform, 300 million gamers engaged each month. So thank you for joining us, Amanda.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Next, we have John Birchall. John is the Director of Editorial Strategy at LADbible. If you've been on Instagram or TikTok, you're probably familiar with LADbible, at least if you're in their sort of demographic crosshairs, like I believe I must be. But for those who maybe are not familiar, LADbible Group is an entertainment brand and platform, one of the world's largest social publishers with a global audience around 1 billion. Before LADbible, John was the audience and content director at Reach PLC. They're the largest commercial publisher in the UK and Ireland. So John, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, we have Ariscielle Novicio. Ariscielle is the SVP and Head of Technology at the New York Post. In this role, and for the last 15 years, she's guided the Post evolution into what we know today, the well-loved digital media brand. So Ariscielle, thank you for joining us for the discussion today and for your second webinar with us at OpenWeb.
Sure, anytime. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, so thanks to everybody again for joining. And for everybody who's watching right now, we are going to do a Q&A after. So if you have anything that we don't touch on that you want to talk about or want to have our panel cover, just use the Q&A function in the Zoom app, and we will be going through those towards the end. So we're going to cover 3 topics here as a panel, and then we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can. So let's get started. All right, so the first topic today, we're going to start with regulation, specifically privacy regulations. So I will start by saying this. Over the last few years, what regulations do exist have played a really important role in protecting data, fostering trust, and just greater transparency for users. However, these regulations today, they're a total patchwork, especially in the US, where even state by state, we have different sort of rules for privacy regulations. So here's my question, and I'll start with Ariscielle. When it comes to privacy regulation, where do you see this going? How do you see the evolving landscape of privacy regulations impacting business for publishers and media in the coming year? What kind of challenges and opportunities do you anticipate?
I'm going to start with like the challenges, like personally, that I'm experiencing as a CTO, right? So we've been maturing our privacy practice over the last 3 years. And as it continues to change, I'm always about like cleaning my house first. So I'm always about like, how prepared am I as the privacy tech and the privacy lead owning this for the organization? And I have a co-lead on the legal side to address and enable the business to be ahead of this. So that's like sort of my first challenge, right? That means staffing up, partnerships, having the right expertise, doing my homework, and really knowing from a privacy perspective, even as the tech person, right? What's coming up and what are the nuances of all the regulations or the legislations that are out there for me to then design a program that makes sense and makes me compliant as a business. So that's sort of like my biggest challenge. But at the same time, I feel like it's not going away, right? So I just need to be prepared and be good at my practice and continue to mature it. And there's also education and awareness that we need to build within our entire organization amongst our stakeholders and the people that work within the New York Post and the New York Post network, so that we remain compliant outside of the walls of the people who really just own privacy. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. How about John or Amanda, if you guys have anything you want to add, or how does it look from your perspective? What do you think is coming down the pike this year, and what kind of challenges do you anticipate?
Sure, happy to talk to that. I mean, I think the number of stakeholders involved is a really interesting and pertinent point on our side. I think for what we've looked to do is really try to accelerate our approach, which has been kind of moving away from a church and state relationship between, you know, the content side of the business and the D2C side of the business and the commercial side of the business. So, you know, whether that comes to kind of more brand safety focus, more attention focused metrics on the kind of content and audience side, brand launches where we've really tried to do that with a kind of North Star of, you know, keeping the policies and the privacy regulations front of mind with everything that we do. So that goes from, you know, a journalist and the stories that they choose. How is that going to drive the type of behaviors that will set us up nicely from that, all the way through, you know, our commercial sales team, our tech team. So yeah, I think the real key point from us has been trying to get the entire organization, to Ariscielle's point, educated, understanding kind of what's coming down the track, and then also, yeah, kind of getting around it as an organization rather than just one or two perhaps siloed stakeholders within the business.
Yeah, I mean, I come at this one from an interesting angle, because for those of you that don't know the depth of Enthusiast gaming, we like to say we're the surround sound of gaming. So we do pretty much everything that surrounds the culture and the lifestyle of a gamer other than make the games themselves. So for us, it's about being across all of the different platforms where gamers show up, where content creators show up, and where information shows up. But in doing that, we actually don't play into, in a lot of ways, capturing data. And so for us, for better or worse, right? And we can talk about this as we go through this webinar further, but for us, it's really been about that cultural and contextual alignment of understanding the platforms that the gamers play in and what it means to understand them in those platforms, and then leaning on those platform partners. So for example, we have a co-partnership with TikTok. We're getting the information from them and adhering to their policies, right? Same thing goes for in the new world of kind of Web3 and the metaverse. I know it was kind of the buzzword of 2022. It's not gone. You know, we build a lot of in-game kind of map creation, and understanding how those nuances in privacy impact different map environment, from a Fortnite to a Roblox to a Minecraft, is important, but it's also more of us adhering to the regulations of each of those. And for me, at least, I'm more curious about futuristically, as we look at new platforms and new areas that consumers are paying attention or giving these platforms attention in immersive media, how are all of these privacy concerns going to translate to those environments? Because it's beyond the web, right? And it's beyond social. There's a new world of immersive media in that landscape. And I'm very curious about how those regulations begin to form, which still feels very Wild West.
Yeah, Mitch, can I add one more thing? Yeah, so like one more thing just on, I thought about it just as Amanda was talking, like from an audience perspective, like it's also when I think about like what my roadmap is for this year, on top of all the other things that I mentioned, I'm also thinking about like the consumers getting really smart about privacy and their privacy rights. Like, what is the user experience and the transparency that we need to put in front of them so that they know exactly what they're getting for the data that they may or may not be willing to exchange with us, right? So that is sort of like a big program that I've been thinking about over the last, I'm thinking about actually longer than I should be thinking about it, because I just don't know what the right balance is, right?
I think that's a really good point. And again, kind of coming from with the audience hat on, for us, it's about building the type of relationship with users, which is like genuinely two-way. You know, it's not exploitative. It's very transparent. Over in the UK, we have a piece of legislation coming through from the Information Commissioner around reject all cookies options. And again, for us, that's a great opportunity for us to kind of just, be fully open in terms of what we're doing. Our approach is that any piece of content we put out, be it on our O&O, across our social platforms, is that any piece of content is lead gen, and anything is kind of opening the door for people to kind of come into our little universe. So I think, it's how do we do that in a way which, like I say, is there's the value exchange from a content and a UX perspective that actively encourages that, rather than feeling like we're having to trick people into a transactional relationship.
Yeah, I think that, for a long time at OpenWeb, we've been talking about the importance of the one-to-one relationship, audience and consumers, right? The difference today is, I guess it's there. Of course, there is this patchwork of legislations like we talked about, but really, I think from what we're hearing, at least from the publishers, leaders in publishing that we talk to, including the three of you today, it's that we want to be open and we want to be transparent with how we're tracking what we're doing with their data, especially as consumers become smarter and smarter about this. So that's great. And very relatedly, actually, our next topic here is cookies. Obviously, I would say it's a trending topic, but I suppose it's been a trending topic at this point for years, years and years. But it looks like it's finally here. I'm sure everybody watching this, and certainly everybody on this panel, knows the year is 2024, and Google is actually finally doing it. That 1%, and unless it's changed in the last week, of Chrome users are no longer have third-party tracking cookies enabled. So obviously, there's been a lot of talk about this over the years. Estimates vary. But this transition could cost publishers $2 billion a year. It's a 6% dip in advertising revenue. That number comes from the National Association of Broadcasters. And of course, especially well-resourced publishers have been preparing for this for a long time. And like I said, despite the losses that could come, publishers, marketers are pretty excited about this because we've got this new era of transparency and trust. So John, I'll start with you on this one. You mentioned you were talking about audience a second ago as well. Can you outline a few of the major steps that you've taken and that the team has taken at LADbible to prepare for this moment, for the end of third-party cookies? And what kind of guidance might you have for others in the industry, maybe those who are a little bit behind the curve or maybe have fewer resources? What can they do?
Sure. I think, well, as an eternal optimist, I think there are reasons to be relatively cheerful despite a lot of the mood music. I think our view is that, for a start, the interest and engagement with our content is only growing, and demand isn't going away. What it's going to demand is a kind of move towards a more contextual relationship when it comes to the monetization of what we do, and deeper engaged audiences. So we've kind of split it into two on our side of the business. More specifically, editorially, in terms of what we've done to prep, it's been a real focus on those deeper content pipelines, like I say, those attention-focused metrics, diversifying our audiences, the referrals of those audiences, really to try and build, like I say, those relationships, rather than going from naught to a first-party data transaction, really try and build the behaviors that we think will encourage that kind of deeper relationship and that more one-on-one relationship. So kind of finding the quality sessions and page views, building those well-lit environments. That's kind of been part one on the editorial side. On the monetization piece, it's been really around improving the experience on our digital display, our viewability, building those cohorts through first-party data. We use the example of huge amounts of entertainment content and deeply engaged audience with our entertainment content. How we can then take that to market in a way which, again, from a user's perspective, they're just being given and served great content that they love. It's also, over time, been building the kind of understanding of those cohorts from that first-party data. So, yeah, it's been a kind of a number of different things, and also tactical things and strategic things that we've done across the business. We recently launched our most recent site, domain, UniLad Tech. that was because we saw the kind of engagement with the technology space that our audiences had. And rather than going for perhaps a bigger piece with more eyeballs, we decided that we'd move into a space where we had really high engagement, really high loyalty metrics. And the same is true of our recent acquisition of Betches Media as well, where huge brand equity, hugely engaged audience. So it's kind of been two pieces. It's been the content side, but also the commercial side with some kind of specific tactics for each.
Do you think that this, the end of cookies, the renewed reliance, I should say, on first party data, does it make publishers' jobs even harder? And I guess I would like everybody to tell me what they think. I think now if the goal sort of must be, and I think at OpenWeb we've said it is for a long time, and I think probably everybody agrees at least somewhat, to register users. It is obviously much harder to register users, and it puts so much more emphasis on your content and your overall user experience. Like, I guess I'm not even sure how to answer this, so sorry for asking. but do you think this makes things much harder for publishers, and if so, in what way and how much?
I don't think it necessarily makes things harder from my perspective. I think it's a different type of relationship that we're trying to build, and frankly, I think it helps to move the industry away and publishers away from the kind of relationships which, yes, perhaps at scale and at great volume, kind of painted a very rosy picture. I think fundamentally the strongest and most reliant and longest lasting kind of publishers, content providers, creators, whatever it is, are those that have really strong relationships with their user base and their customers and their audiences. So I don't think it's necessarily made it harder. I think it's just kind of really crystallized what it is that makes high quality content and high quality sessions and high quality relationships. Certainly a different challenge, but I wouldn't say harder, just different.
Amanda, Ariscielle?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, we don't have to do much to prepare for this because quite honestly, we weren't really dependent on cookies in the first place, which I think is a crazy statement to make here in media, right? But in gaming, what we've really tried to focus on is not the one-to-one relationship that digital media has afforded us, which is where we could have gone, right? The understanding of a user and targeting them in a certain way, which in a lot of ways can be over frequency and over saturation. For us in gaming, what's so important, and authenticity is thrown around everywhere, right? But it's also dialogue. And so in the gaming space specifically, it's not about one-to-one, it's about a two-way dialogue. And so you can push something at someone and know them all day long, but you might be disrespecting them. And we want respect and relevance. So for us, it's actually more about opening up. And when you asked the question to John, my thought wasn't, is it harder for publishers, but is it better for consumers? And it's a better experience for a consumer to feel like they're being asked a question, asked to respond, listened to, and then creating that dialogue instead of given something pushed in their face. And so I think this just allows for an experience where we listen more. And advertising over the last decade has really got into a place of we think we know enough about you. And so we are going to tell you what you need, and maybe even creepily listening to what you need, right? With social listening. I mean, I know I've played games truly with my own friends where we'll spend a weekend and we'll talk into our phones while we're holding out, Instagram or TikTok, and we'll mention, oh, I'm so hungry for pizza. I'm so hungry for pizza. And then we'll wait and see how many pizza ads we get served in the next hour. I mean, creepy, right? And so is that what I wanted? Did I really want pizza, or did they think I wanted pizza? So where is the opportunity now for the consumer to say, this is what I want, or actually I didn't want that. And when I was thinking that, I wanted it in this way. And so I think there's a great opportunity here for us to change the way that media works right now and to change the way that marketing works and open up a true dialogue and a true understanding of respect of the consumer base through this change.
Well, and I'm going to answer the second question first. Like, is it harder for publishers today? I would say yes, it is, right? Because I do know a lot of my peers and even for myself, we've been thinking about what cookie deprecation means for our business over the last 3 years, right? And every time it didn't happen, from a technology perspective, I was like, I kind of need it to happen because I prepared for it technically just so I know what the outcome is, right? And there's also the dialogue internally with the sales team and with our industry partners, with our ID spine partners, and with the executives to say, okay, how are we even going to test and know what happens when cookies fully deprecate, right? So I would say it's harder, but I'm also with like John and Amanda, where it provides us an opportunity to look at our business differently and the different ways of working. The good thing about the good thing about cookie deprecation is it's also allowed us to think more granular and more thoughtful about the way we deliver our value and our value proposition to our audience. So I think that's kind of been like a cool thing, right? Before we had like two buckets, logged in users and we had anonymous users. Now we're like, okay, let's cut that down a little bit more and really know who our users are and how they behave, to then put in front of them experiences that would generate value for both of us, right? It's truly like a two-way thing we're having to think about now, which I think is pretty exciting. It's also been pretty great to have a whole industry come together to say, hey, you know what? Big tech is about to change the way we work. Let's come together as publishers, which I'd never seen before, and let's really ideate on how we can de-risk cookie deprecation.
Yeah, and having gone to a few conferences over the years, that is definitely true. The level of focus, yeah, I at least in my experience, don't see anything else with this level of focus. So it is pretty, it is commensurate though. I guess, although maybe there is one other thing, and it's actually the next topic for discussion that kind of captivated everybody at the same time, and that is, you guessed it, AI. So obviously, talking with all of our partners in media and publishing, we've heard a lot of different takes on AI. And of course, using it right can help publishers reimagine all these traditional roles and tasks and increase efficiency. For people to talk about user orchestration, obviously analyzing huge sets of data, tons of applications, right? But of course, and lots of people were talking about this as well, AI can also accelerate all kinds of not so great things. Misinformation, making misinformation almost indistinguishable from the real thing. And I think really relevant to this audience is it threatens referral traffic. We've got, every search engine now using AI to essentially scrape your content to make it so that they really never need to go to your actual site. So here's a question. We've had a year of hype. Right now, how are you using AI today? And how do you see it impacting your business in the near future for 2024? And Amanda, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, AI is an exciting topic to me. I'll start with, we're not using AI enough today. It's a very minimal understanding of it. We are starting to dive deep as an organization, actually, into AI learnings and trainings. We have a few of our operational leaders looking into the different AI tools that we want to utilize. And so I can tell you some of the areas we're starting to implement AI and think about its impact for media and also its impact specifically within gaming, because I will say, to the point of, I've never felt more before like publishers are banding together to kind of combat this new age of technology. It's never felt more impactful as well within the digital and immersive media space, specifically because right now we are, I mean, I don't want to use the word Wild West too often, right? But like, there isn't a standardization in measurement. There isn't a standardization in how you measure success in gaming, what it means, because there are so many different layers to gaming. There's mobile gaming, there's in-game gaming, there's intrinsic in view, there's content creators that surround gaming, there's the content and the cultural beats around gaming. And how do you define one success metric around that? And so a lot of the conversations that we've been having with industry partners is, how do we in the new digital era really think about success metrics as not an upper funnel or a lower funnel, but a full funnel success metric that truly understands the user journey? And you can't do that from one metric. You can't be like, it was ROI or it was impression volume, right? These are I don't want to say basic measurements because they're way far in advance from the world of traditional media, television and print, right? And we've come so far in digital, but AI, I actually think is going to allow us the ability to create indexed measurement systems in way more advanced ways. So one example I can give is, a lot of the programs we do involve an element of live streaming. And so when we're live streaming and a content creator is live streaming content on Twitch, there is the chatbot going. So in the old days, you'd have an account manager sitting there for 4 hours watching the live stream, pulling out comments, pulling out thoughts, giving a wrap report on what happened. Well, there's an easy AI solution for that. You can do a AI sweep of chatbot sentiment. You can understand what was the overall mood. Was it good? Was it bad? What were the good comments? What were the bad comments? How do you now take that and integrate that into the 4 other parts of the campaign? How do you integrate that into the impression, the organic reach, put a system together and find a measurement that truly only AI has the capacity to do? So I think there's a lot there in measurement. There's also, in a more basic media sense, just the idea of finding true, not only efficiency, but effectiveness in the way we respond to asks. So I've seen a lot of AI tools that they're really helpful for creative agencies where they will take all of the details of a brief, they'll integrate them, and they'll come up with an answer. Well, what if we as publishers could utilize that type of systematic ingest to the brief, come up with an answer, but that answer set needs to exist from your product mix. So all of a sudden you've streamlined an RFP process of AI understands your product mix, they understand the brief being given. And now, not for multi-million-dollar RFPs where we're going to put all of our best thought and creative behind, but for a certain threshold of sub 100K asks, they can give us a quick answer and response, and we can find efficiency in our support systems. So we're not using it enough in that I want to do it the right way. Like, I don't want to just use a system and it feel thoughtless. But thoughtfully, I think we can start to build really proprietary tools that can find efficiencies in the way we work. And I don't think that risks losing jobs, right? Because I know that's the perpetual conversation, but I think that allows for then the role of an account manager to be more creative, to be more hands-on in different ways, and to not be bogged down by trying to come up with some of the more basic day-to-day tasks that we can now integrate AI for.
That's great. John, anything you want to add?
That's fascinating again, from a kind of completely different perspective. I think from our side, we aren't utilizing generative AI for kind of written content creation for a number of reasons at the moment, quality control, platform compliance. We've experimented with a number of different photo and video formats, but again, very much with that going back to the trust and that relationship with our user base, very much kind of front facing of, this is AI, we're doing this, we're trying it. Really, I think what it's been able to do, and the conversation around AI, and I completely agree in terms of the industry coming together to share thoughts and best practice, has been very helpful and interesting. I think we've really tried to utilize AI across the kind of core areas of our content life cycle, as we call it. So ideation, production, distribution, monetization, and then the analysis. And that's the kind of virtuous circle that anything that we create goes through on any given hour, day, week. We're looking at how we can adopt AI into each of those processes, but in a way that is kind of genuinely additive to the audience's experience. To go back to Amanda's point earlier on that dialogue, what is it that our users want, and how can AI help to deliver that in an effective way and in an interesting way? Because candidly, our users don't care how efficient we are in the back end. They don't really care. They just want great content, and they want to receive stuff in the way that, and packaged in a way that they like and will respond to. So again, we're really trying to take the audience experience part of it, the monetization piece, obviously a huge amount of opportunity for us there. And on the content creation side, yeah, we're looking at it. We're looking at ways that we can create something that's additive. I think there's obviously big fears around what it could mean for, especially words and pictures driven media. I think from our side, it kind of devalues and misunderstands the level of creativity and work that goes into, again, the ideation of great content, the distribution of that great content. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that we're currently looking at, doing a little bit of testing, but again, at the moment, from a kind of D2C perspective, there's not anything that we're putting out that's solely created by AI.
And Ariscielle, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, sure. Actually, AI for me kind of a completely tech answer. It was like super, super exciting because it's been a while since new tech has come out where it's really giving you the opportunity to have incremental innovation and then new product development, right? So this has really given me the opportunity to, one, here at the New York Post, we've had the angle I've taken with this one at first is because, like, when it first came out, there was a lot of hype and a lot of discussion and a lot of excitement around it, but yet still a lot of fear. So to Amanda's point on like, our people were worried about losing their jobs to what AI can now deliver, right? And make more automated. So, but I did really, really want to do something. So what the beauty about the role that my team has is we always get workflow issues reported to us because we're supposed to fix it and make it better for our internal employees. So we took a lot of the production inefficiencies that exist within the editorial workflow that have been prohibiting the team to get faster to market with stories, right? For breaking news and publishing, which is super, super important to us. And we took about 7 use cases and built those using AI with human QA before they get published to speed up the process. So we have things like infographic creation that used to take 30 minutes, which now takes, especially with the elections coming up, takes like less than 30 seconds, right? So that happens. That's in the development. That's in QA now. We have like alt text generation for ADA compliance, which we've built out, which is such a mundane task, but people had to do it in the past, which is now automated. So I'm super excited about that. We have, if you guys are fans of the New York Post, we have like image collages on our print product and also on our digital facing platforms. That's also now semi-automated, I would say, because that's sort of phase 1 of a multi-phase project. We have 10 or other projects that are in the mix that are about ready to go, plus more to come. And then we're also thinking about just new, like going back to like the value prop and the new experiences earlier that we were talking about. We're also talking about like new experiences that we can develop using AI to get more engagement and be more engaging to our users. So I'm all in.
That's really cool. That's a ton of really interesting stuff, and from everybody too. And I have follow-up questions, but we are at time, so I cannot ask them. However, if anybody has 1 or 2 minutes, we have 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Are you guys okay to try to answer 1 or 2 of these questions?
Of course.
Okay, cool. And we could do it sort of like lightning round, keep it pretty quick. Our first one is from Bob Rose. Thanks for the question. It is, what are the key analytics you use to measure loyalty? Is it average time, number of days visited per month, etc.? And I don't know who should answer first. Maybe John, it's audience related.
Yeah, gladly. So we have a number of different metrics that we typically use. So sessions per user across a month, to kind of on audience frequency. So yeah, return users, sessions per user, and also we use Chartbeat as our live analytics platform. So we use their proprietary loyalty metric, which is effectively someone visiting our brands every other day. Then beyond that, we then have our kind of our attention metrics on site. So that is average engage time, page views per session, and a number of others, but they're the key ones.
Anything?
That would be the same. Yeah, that would be the same for us. But the one thing that I just asked my analytics team to look at as well is cross-channel engagement, right? Because we usually look at my post separately from page 6 from decider.com, which is also a brand of ours. Now I'm looking at, for a user, how are they behaving across all domains and then across all distribution channels.
Amanda, no need to add.
I mean, similar kind of formula, you know, we've put up different metrics, but honestly, a lot of I mentioned this before in the AI conversation, but we're actually starting to try to introduce behavioral based and mood based understanding of sentiment, and how that impacts the overall understanding of also reach and impressions driven back to sessions and time spent, just to layer in that additive kind of piece.
All right. So Bob, hope that was helpful. And we have a question from an anonymous attendee also. This one may be building on kind of some of what we talked about before. It says for publishing companies, some rely obviously very heavily on cookies. What else can they do during the transition period this year? So we talked about the importance of like registration, improving the experience, a bunch of different ways we touched on to do that. Anything else that you'd like to add to answer this question specifically? What else can publishers do during the transition period here at the end of the third-party tracking cookie?
I'm happy to start. I mean, I'd go back to Amanda's point earlier around the dialogue with the user base and with audiences. At LADbible, we have a something called Lad Nation, which is a platform and a panel of circa 50,000 youths and young adults in the UK, where we have that kind of constant dialogue and take the pulse of what is it that they care about, what is it that they're worried about, which are the brands that they're engaged with. And we actively use that panel both for, when it comes to pitches and commercial conversations, but it also actively feeds into what we do from an audience and content perspective as well. So I'd say the key thing for us, and it's kind of one of our key strategic pillars for the year, is just getting to know our audience more. What is it that they want? What is it they need? And although registration and first-party data is an extremely helpful way of doing that, I think there are other ways and other conversations that can be had, both quant and qual, and just getting that deeper understanding of the kind of experiences that they want. So when third-party cookies do go, we're well set up and we're really confident that we've got that as deep an understanding of our audience cohort as anyone out there.
Yep, I'll go next. So everything that John said, plus from a monetization perspective, what we've done here is we've built our first-party ID to de-risk the loss of the how long the Google Client ID lasts, right? And how much we know about our users. So we've done that. We've also, that's sort of like pure tech, right? We've also ramped up an experimentation culture, right? Because to everything that John said, we're now experimenting with different ways to engage with our users to see what works best. So there's that. There's also experimentation of which identity spine partners will give us the right match, data match for users and give us additional attributes about our users so that we can serve them the right ads at the right time to get the proper lift that we need to de-risk cookies going away.
Building on top of that, the other area that we've looked into is more collaboration with partners. So, we lean very heavily on, John said it earlier, part of the way to combat cookies is to be building better content and better content for the consumers to actually want to engage with, but not just building that content on our own property, but doing it in partnership. So for example, collaborating with TikTok, building really engaging content, and then literally placing it on TikTok and co-selling it together will lead to understanding their audience set, our understanding of content, and the collaboration between it. We do very similar things right now with YouTube through Google with our CSP. We have a huge creator network of 500 creators, and we're creating that content, but it's living within YouTube. And so we're not kind of hitting those impacts yet of that cookie experience. What I definitely don't want to do with saying this, right, is say that we're giving those big tech players all the power, because that is the scary thing, right, as this is happening, that we feel the giants are the ones that are benefiting most because they have access to this data. But for us to prepare ourselves, I think we need to be more aligned with them. And we also need to prove our worth to the tech giants on why they need the value of publishers like everyone on this line who truly understand our core audience sets and how we can work together to create more collaboration in the space.
All right. If nobody has anything to add to that, great answers all around. I think that just about wraps it up. So thank you all for joining, and everybody who was in the audience. And there's tons of other things to cover that we weren't able to talk about today. They are in this ebook that we have coming out on Tuesday. It features the three here before you, as well as about 5 other people who are experts in the industry, leaders in the industry. So stay tuned on our LinkedIn. If you're on our email list by subscribing to this, you'll get an email about it. So watch out for that. But otherwise, thanks again to the panel, Ariscielle, Amanda, John for joining, and hope it was great.
Thank you back.
Very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks again.